It's not completely fleshed out, but I have an alternative ending that I think is better than the last 15 minutes of this movie. Okay, so now we're getting into the meat of the story. So she runs into Joan at the supermarket, and Joan sees her and she's ecstatic. Annie proceeds to tell Toni Collette this phenomena that she witnessed, family members reconnecting with their loved ones who have moved on. So Joan instructs Toni how to perform this seance, and she like demonstrates it for her. By the way, we should also mention that Charlie makes this.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, Charlie clucks.
Which is very strange.
Which, if I had a kid that did that...
She wakes up her husband, wakes up Peter, and says, I need you guys to come down here and try this with me.
They all put their hand on the glass, and then she says the incantation. The candle goes out, and Peter starts getting scared, and then the dad is like, we need to stop. Like, this is scaring Peter.
Yeah. I loved the dad. He's probably like, I gotta get my ass back to Scotland.
Honestly, that is probably his exact thought process. Right. All Americans are possessed.
All Americans are possessed.
She flips to the sketchbook, which is necessary for the seance. Looks like she's being possessed by Charlie. The dad fills up a glass of water and then throws it on her, and then she
snaps out of it.
At some point, she looks at the sketchbook, and these are drawings of Peter, and she's watching this pencil draw Peter, but it's scratching his eyes out. So she grabs the sketchbook, and she throws it into the fire. The object is in the fire, and she's now, her arm is catching on fire. She pats out the sketchbook.
And then the flame from her arm slowly disappears.
Right. Toni Collette finds in the attic, she's flipping through albums, and she sees Joan's face in the photo albums. So
Cult member.
Yeah. The movie's almost over. It's like we're 30 minutes away, and she finds the mythology that sort of like contexts this movie.
That King Payman is one of the kings of hell.
So she finds this book, and it says, when successfully invoked, King Payman will successfully possess the most vulnerable host. Only when the ritual is complete will King Payman be locked into his ordained host. Once locked in, a new ritual is required to unlock the possession. King Payman is a male, thus covetous of a male human body. Unless you wanted me to be a boy.
Unless you wanted me to be a boy.
Okay, so that is information that is introduced way too late, and then we're like, wait, what? Then Toni Collette smells something foul. She goes up into the attic and she finds her mother's decapitated body. What?
Oh, also there's like a million flies.
Oh yeah. She tries to explain everything to Gabriel Burns. He's convinced that she's had a nervous breakdown.
Also, he makes a comment where he's like, it was you, wasn't it? She took her own mother's body out of the cemetery and put it in their attic. Which I think is a very interesting and compelling theory.
And she doesn't really react to that either, which is interesting. She is screaming at her husband, you need to throw this she has the sketchbook, throw this into the fire, you have to throw this into the fire. It's going to kill me, but it's the only thing that will save Peter. He says, I'm not going to play this game with you anymore, you need serious help. So she takes it herself, throws it into the fire. This is officially the last 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. And stuff hits the fan.
She throws the sketchbook into the fire. She immolates hubby. Hubby is on fire.
His whole body.
And she's like, okay, so Peter wakes up hours later, which, by the way, why didn't his father's screams wake him up? He walks downstairs, he sees his father's. And then Toni Collette, out of nowhere, possessed Toni Collette by Charlie, flies out of nowhere. She literally flies. This is where like the supernatural occurrences become undeniable.
Nobody else who was possessed by this demon had physical symptoms. They weren't throwing up pea soup. Their heads weren't turning around. They weren't floating. And all of a sudden here she is flying around the house.
So she attacks Peter. He runs up the attic. He closes the stairs to the attic.
Annie's like right on his heels.
Yeah.
This was like the scariest part of the movie to me, probably. Like, he's hearing knocking and he's like, Mom, stop. And she's on the ceiling upside down, knocking her head, like smashing her head.
But yeah, how did she get there?
Right?
Did she
Flying
get there?
around the house. She has made it into the attic. Peter like hears this horrifying squelching sound.
That is exactly the
Squelch.
She has piano wire and she is sawing her neck back and forth.
Ugh.
And she's
staring at Peter while she's doing it.
and then he looks up and he sees 3 naked people smiling and waving.
So he's like,
Ah!
he goes, ah! Throws himself out the window because he's like, I've had it up to here, fam.
Yeah.
And so he chucks himself out of the window.
And we hear a noise that, like a thumping sound, which we assume is Toni Collette's body.
Head falling off.
Or, yeah. Okay. The spirit of Charlie floats down into Peter.
Which is immortalized as this white light.
The spirit of Charlie is unlocked in Peter. He, or now she, Charlie,
or just King Payman.
stands up in Peter's body, clucks, and walks to the treehouse.
We have also seen Annie's decapitated body floating out the window and floating up into the treehouse.
Okay. King Payman. King Payman walks into the treehouse and sees a golden effigy that's meant to represent him with Grandmama's decapitated head on.
I think it's Charlie's head.
Oh my god, are you serious?
I had a theory that Annie had gone back to the decapitation scene.
I think you're right.
Took Charlie's head and then put it in this treehouse. It's worth mentioning, Annie throughout the whole movie has been frequenting the treehouse where Charlie spent most of her time. I thought all these nights that she had been spending in the treehouse, she had been like constructing this weird ritual.
It's Grandmama's body, decapitated body.
In a kneeling position.
Yeah, kneeling and like bowing to the effigy, and then decapitated Toni Collette's body. And then King Payman turns around and sees several different, like 7 to 8 naked people kneeling, not to the effigy, but to
him.
Then Anne Dowd stands up. She's one of the 7 to 8 naked people. Walks over, takes the crown off of Charlie, walks it over to Charlie / Peter / King Payman. And then Anne Dowd and 7 to 8 naked acolytes begin screaming, "Hail Payman! Hail Payman!" It zooms out, and it looks like one of the miniature scenes that Toni Collette could have created.
Yeah. The last like 2 to 5 minutes of the whole movie, very hopeful music is playing. It
It's
makes
like-
it seem like a happy ending.
It's like church music.
The treehouse is all lit up, like it's like glowing.
Okay, so we already explained why we don't like the ending, right? It's because the ambiguity is lost. The movie is transformed and confirmed to be an occult type of
Right.
like possession type movie.
The entire movie seems to be about how Toni Collette's character Annie, she mentions in the beginning that her mother was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. I think she also has dissociative identity disorder. All of these things that are happening that the camera is not shown, I think Annie is doing herself. When she throws the notebook in the fire and she catches on fire, I think she caught herself on fire.
Yeah.
She throws the notebook in the fire a second time, her husband catches on fire. I think she caught him on fire.
No, I agree.
I think she desecrated the grave, took the body,
Yeah.
carried it up to their attic. I think she set up this entire ritualistic scene in the treehouse with Charlie's
Right.
head. I think she was an agent acting out of delusional behavior for what I believe was also her DID.
I actually really like that analysis, and I like the idea of her being like, she's not an unreliable narrator.
Right.
She's not a narrator. She's an unreliable perspective, because
Yeah.
for much of what the audience sees, we see what she's seeing. When her actions are being called into question, which are not what we've seen,
Right.
then the audience is like, okay, so maybe what we're watching are the delusions of a woman going mad.
Right. It's almost like what we're seeing is kind of what one of Annie's personalities are seeing. She is doing all these things but maybe doesn't even remember them because they were done in a period of dissociation so strong that she can't even... She has no memory of them. In the last 15 minutes, it just becomes about a demon possession narrative. The questioning of her, like, mental condition is lost. We got McDonald's. A 2-hour break. We needed it. It was much needed.
What did you last? Sorry, we took a long break.
Don't get me wrong. I am a slut for possession movies. Like, I love...
She said this a lot today.
I love religious horror. I love, like, demons. I love possessions. Like, I love cults. Like, I love horror that surrounds those things. It's like this completely invalidated the narrative that the first hour and 45 minutes was made of. And then it just all becomes like a possession narrative and we're like, now it's all about fucking King Payman. I don't know him. I don't care about him. And it becomes about Peter, and it's like, yes, I care about Peter, but like, what happened to Annie? Like, she just becomes this person who's possessed and doesn't talk and like flies and...
Okay, so I do have, it's not completely fleshed out, but I have an alternative ending that I think is better than the last 15 minutes of this movie. I do think that she should have killed her husband. I do think that was necessary. Peter should have gone downstairs like he did.
She should think that he needs to be killed. Because we were talking about, like, one of her delusions could be this whole occult narrative. Her motivation for killing him should be this, like, delusion.
I agree.
That he needs to die in order for King Payman to inhabit his body, but King Payman doesn't actually exist. He just, like, exists in her mind.
Then they can play this, like, cat and mouse game in the house. At some point they should end up in the treehouse.
Yeah.
As a way for him to escape. He finds the same setup that Anne Dowd had set up, but no one is there. We assume it's Toni Collette who's sort of
set up this.
Yeah, who has created this
ritual
sort of like
treehouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he goes up there, he's like, what the hell? When he sees all of this stuff and she's set it up in the treehouse, and it's clear that she's set it up as this, like, ritual altar to King Payman, who is, like, this thing that she's convinced is, like, needs to take over Peter's body. There's this kind of realization of Peter's that, oh, like, I need to kill my mom now.
Yes. Either they kill each other, or he kills his mother. If that did happen, say if they don't kill each other and say he kills her instead, what I thought would be even more interesting, say that there's, like, another time jump, and then somehow Anne Dowd tries to, like, contact him.
Oh my gosh.
She, like, kind of pretends to run into him, and so then...
That would be so good.
That's when it's okay for the idea of the occult to exist in this movie. That's the end of episode 1, spoiler alert.
You know, comment below if you kind of have anything that we kind of forgot to talk about in this episode, or that we would love clarification on.
Or if you have a better alternate ending for this movie.
Or something that you also didn't like about it.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye.